Well, okay, Dan, so let's take her home here by talking about the application of the mark, the requirement for permanency for the life of that particular asset.
Yeah, this is the home stretch here. You're about to cross the finish line. You have your compliant labels.
Hmm.
The mark has to be permanent. So you're ready to apply it to an asset, and you can see we have some weaponry here. You want to be sure that that surface is clean. No dust. You want it absolutely clean. So if it's not, if it's dusty, you want to take maybe a nice purple alcohol wipe it down, and then make sure after you've wiped it, make sure that surface is dry.
Yep.
When you're peeling the label from the backing, you want to be extra careful so that your fingers are not touching the backing, the adhesive, because the oils from your skin could potentially break down the adhesives. These are military-grade adhesives, so once you apply it to the surface, the clean surface, using thumb pressure, or if you're using an aluminum plate, usually what's provided is a small roller to apply the pressure that you need so that the adhesive fully cures to the surface. So the other things to consider, where should I be affixing these marks? Usually there may be some specifications as to where the placement of these labels should go, so you want to consider those. If there are no specifications, you want to be sure you put it in a place where, at the very least, that barcode is easily accessible through a scanner so that you can read these barcodes. You certainly don't want to put it in an area that you don't have access to the barcode to check the readability. And then, of course, once the label is affixed, you want to record it, the affix date for your audit trail. Yeah. Then, you can validate the asset pedigree data within the assets that you're marking. And then when you're talking about managing to exceptions, let's say, for example, you have an asset that's been marked with the UID label, but then it's being rebuilt or modified, and now it's a new part. Well, now you need a new UID and to identify what that new asset is. Now, sometimes you may run into some challenges in terms of, well, this is a fairly small item. I just don't have the real estate to apply a label to this asset. You can what is used as a bag and tag process where you can actually apply the label to the bag with the assets or the smaller items in that bag.
Yeah.
When we're talking about bag and tag and small items, I want to bring up one particular thing in regards to the 2D data matrix barcode that's created. You want to be sure that the barcode itself, assuming that it's passed verification, the size of the barcode can sometimes be a challenge for readability. You don't want to go below or smaller than 1/4 of an inch squared when it comes to these barcodes. Anything smaller than that is going to give you serious challenges in terms of the readability. Typically, barcodes ideally are somewhere in between a 1/3 inch to maybe a 1/2 inch squared tops. That will give you excellent readability. This challenge usually doesn't come into play unless you have very small part numbers and very small serial numbers. The size of the barcode will expand based on how much data you're putting in there. But in terms of size, that's definitely something you might want to consider in terms of ease of readability.
And that discussion can be meaningful, in particular when you're dealing with the engineering department.
Absolutely.
And they're designing out their specifications and how much area or space they have, and it can be a challenge. Certainly having a barcode of that size in and amongst the other human readable or other data that might be required on a data plate. But it is key to have that area available. Dan, I'm also going to mention just a couple of different items here that brings us back to the importance of the data. And that is recording the affix date for the audit trail. Now, whether you're a subcontractor supplying to prime contractors, and this is a flow-down requirement coming to you, or whether you're a prime that's maintaining the contract on behalf of the government, and of course your responsibility is to make sure you've created that audit trail so that if DCMA comes in or when they come in, you can show that all of the items that were qualifying items to be marked are in fact marked, and the barcode has been quality checked throughout the process and in fact applied to the item so that there's no ambiguity that in fact MIL Standard 130 obligations have been met. It's a very simple, straightforward thing to do to make sure that you've got all of those issues addressed, but that audit trail is key for those who have the obligation of marking. And we refer to that as the marking authority obligation. Now, on the validation of the asset pedigree, oftentimes when we see people managing existing government property, what they are not doing completely is that when they apply the UID, this is a chance to actually make sure that what you have for your record in your database matches the physical markings on the item. Oftentimes you'll see a serial number marked on the item, a part number that will go along with that item. Any of that asset pedigree, the consistent nomenclature and use of the way that that particular item is being described should be updated and resolved in the database so that it is the most current information, because once this UID, this birth record, is on the item with its pedigree, that information, of course, it has to go to the IUID registry. And once it's there, it will live forever inside that database as a unique asset that is under the custody of whomever it is at the time, but still a DoD asset that needs to be accountable, right?
Absolutely. And just to expand on that just a bit further, Pete, especially with Construct 2 labels in terms of the application, you want to be sure you're applying the correct label to the correct asset in terms of matching that serial number. You may have the same part number for 20 different items. You want to be sure you're looking at the serial number on the asset versus the serial number on the label, and the right label is going on the right asset. Construct 1, that's really not a concern because you're serialized at the cage code level. But the vast majority of the time, especially on new acquisition items, if you have the same part, now you want to be extra careful when applying those labels, that the right labels to the right asset.